Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are taking a look at redraft buy, hold, sell wide receivers. And what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at points per game through weeks 1 through 11, combine that with strength of schedule to see maybe who's been benefiting from, a points per game perspective in terms of the matchups that they've had, or potentially who's been hindered by said matchups. And there's obviously a little bit of nuance and external factors, but then we're also going to take a look at the playoff strength of schedule for these wide receivers to deduce who might be a good sell high, hold, or buy low candidate that might help you substantially in a playoff run in your redraft leagues. So watch to the end of this video and you should have a good idea who should be looking to buy, hold, or sell. And so once again, I have this sorted by points per game throughout weeks 1 through 11. Taking a look at kind of the top tier, we have JSN and Puka. They're the only 20 plus points per game players, and they're both over 21. JSN's had a little bit of an easier strength of schedule, and Puka's had a little bit of a disadvantageous schedule, but nothing ludicrous for either one of them. I kind of think that they're in their own tier in terms of wide receivers. But then in the next tier, we have London, Chase, Rice, Brown, and Pickens. With somebody like George Pickens, he definitely benefited from CD Lamb being out for a while. I think he's realistically a little bit lower. But once again, none of these wide receivers had a ludicrously easy strength of schedule or difficult strength of schedule. So I think that's pretty fair for where they should have been, with the exception of Pickens, who I think was greatly aided by the injury to CD Lamb. In the next tier, we have Adams, Igbuka, Nico Collins, kind of down through that Debo Samuel-ish type of player. Obviously, you could kind of extend that because there's a minimal difference beyond that too, but somewhere in there. Somebody that, has done so with a brutal strength of schedule is Emeka Igbuka. Now, he's benefited from, Chris Godwin being out as well as Mike Evans. But both of those guys are older players, and, at this point, Mike Evans is kind of injury prone. So I do think that he is not going to be necessarily hurt that much by somebody else coming back from injury, especially if they start slow. But somebody who's benefited greatly from a strength of schedule perspective is Chris Olave. And he's still down here at 14.9 points per game. I think he's just really being hampered by the quarterback situation. Although Tyler Shuck, maybe the best is yet to come from him. We'll see about that. Jay Jettas has actually been underperforming despite an easy schedule as well. But then we kind of move down to the McMillan, Waddle, Odunze, Smith, Higgins, Flowers, Diggs, kind of a tier. Somebody like Zay Flowers has had a brutal strength of schedule that's made it quite difficult for him. He also had Lamar Jackson out. So I think that potentially his points per game has been deflated and capped because of those factors. But then, somebody like Rome Odunze, he's kind of been capped by quarterback play, but he's also had a ridiculously easy strength of schedule compared to the rest of the league with a plus 5.2%. Once again, these were derived from Draft Shark's strength of schedule in terms of where I got these percentages from, if you want to reference those. And then the points per game are just, the points per game in a full PPR perspective. In the next tier, we kind of have your McConkey, Addison, MHJ, Sutton, Johnston, Metcalf, Wandale, and Troy Franklin kind of players. None of these guys have had a incredibly, ridiculously easy strength of schedule. But somebody like Jordan Addison, just like Justin Jefferson, has benefited for sure. Same with Marvin Harrison, although Marvin Harrison was hurt by Kyler Murray for most of the year. So once again, a little bit of nuance to that. And then kind of below that, we have some of these guys that I think are kind of wide receiver 3 types, or just players that I think should be higher, but they've been underperforming for a variety of reasons. And that would be your Watson, Tucker, Williams, Pierce, Doubs, AJ Brown, BTJ, Myers, and Pearsall type of players. With somebody like Ricky Pearsall, he's had a reasonably difficult strength of schedule, but he also has been injured, and that number is being deflated because he left mid-game. I think that he is a high upside play that could be potentially bought for cheap. Somebody like Brian Thomas and Jacoby Myers. Now, with Jacoby Myers, I used the Jacksonville strength of schedule. Really, he was, a member of the Raiders. But they've had a brutal strength of schedule. It is the worst in the league. And so I think that potentially we could see better things from them if their strength of schedule were to open up and be a little bit better. But then somebody like Christian Watson, who has been out with injury, but more importantly and realistically, Romeo Doubs, has definitely benefited from an extremely easy, the easiest strength of schedule in the entire NFL, and is still kind of down here in terms of the points per game. And so now let's take a look at who has the easier and more difficult strength of schedule for the actual fantasy playoffs, the time in which we really need the points the most. Well, Jordan Addison and Jefferson are both on the same team, so they have the same, but their strength of schedule is the easiest. So I think if you are looking to acquire a wide receiver for the fantasy playoffs, those two guys, if you're looking for somebody with an extremely beneficial strength of schedule, are obvious buys. Then you have Jalen Waddle, also has a very easy strength of schedule. Zay Flowers, Deebo Samuel, Ricky Pearsall, Amon-Ra St. Brown, J-Mo, Smith, A.J. Brown, and Drake London all have strength of schedules that are, good enough to where I think that could potentially boost some of their value. But then, you kind of have your guys that are in the middle where it's not necessarily insanely easy or insanely difficult to where the strength of schedule should be something you're looking at as a massive upgrade in and of itself. So, that's Wan'Dale Robinson all the way kind of down to T-Mac, to Troy McMillan down there. Then you have your guys that it definitely is a little bit difficult for their strength of schedule. You have Puka Nacua, Adams, Sutton and Franklin, Nico, Metcalf, Pickens, and Lamb. Then you kind of get to Brian Thomas, Jacoby Myers, Trey Tucker, Olave, MHJ, Igbuka, and Rice, where some of these guys, and especially once you get to Igbuka and Rashee Rice, that strength of schedule is terrifyingly bad. And I want to give a special shout out to my Patreon members. Thank you to Big Hunt, SP, Mage Jack, Infamy MTG, AOYOB, and The Dawn. Without your support, this would not be possible. As you're probably well aware if you've been watching my videos for a while, I cannot get monetized because of the film breakdowns I do, and even just the little videos I have where I have clips of plays in them. They get demonetized every single time, making it, therefore, impossible to collect any revenue. So, obviously, your support is greatly appreciated. And if you are so inclined to become a member, the perks would be you will get access to a private Discord where we have both a real life and fantasy football chat, as well as a voice chat if you just don't want to have to type a bunch of stuff. I'll also give you detailed roster breakdowns and roster reviews where we talk about the strengths and weaknesses of your team. Then we kind of break it down further by looking into the scoring settings themselves and the starting lineup requirements to help you build the best team to help you dominate for years to come. In both Dynasty and then in Redraft, obviously, I'd help you with a good solid game plan, especially if you know where you're drafting from. Then also give you detailed trade advice based on your specific league settings to help you dominate. Also give you access to private live streams and the ability to not only see videos at least one day early, but also the ability to suggest videos that you would like to be created. So if you would like to support the channel, I would really appreciate it. If not, just please like and subscribe. Let's get back to the video. And so finally, we're going to take a look. Once again, this is still sorted by weeks 1 through 11 points per game. So you have your kind of top end guys more so towards the top, and then some of the more fringe guys towards the bottom. And once again, this is from a redraft perspective. If you are looking to make a push for the playoffs, somebody like JSN and Puka Nacua, kind of these guys just at the top, I would personally just hold. Their strength of schedule isn't so bad, either one of them, that I think it would really affect them that much. I think they're kind of, wide receiver ones regardless of matchup. So I think they're good holds. Somebody like Drake London is going to have gone from a 1.2% up to a 4.5%. I think he is a buy. Somebody like Jamar Chase. Now, while he's actually going from a 2.3% down to a negative 0.4%, who has he not had throwing him the ball that unlocks 50 points in any game upside? He's getting Joe Burrow back. That's going to be a huge boon to his production. So I would be looking to buy him if I could. Rashee Rice, somebody that's going from a negative 1.4 to a negative 15.8. I'm looking to potentially sell high or hold. And now, when I say sell high, I don't mean sell Rashee Rice for Alec Pierce. Obviously, that's not what I'm suggesting. Nobody should be doing that. You know your leagues. But if you could get somebody kind of in these general same tiers, 1 for 1, or potentially get something added for somebody that has a much more beneficial playoff schedule, I would do that immediately if I could. So then, somebody like Amon-Ra St. Brown is going from a 1.1 up to a 6.7. I think he's a serious buy. George Pickens, I think, is a sell high or hold because he's going from a reasonably difficult strength of schedule down to a much more difficult strength of schedule. Going down a little bit, Emeka Egbuka is going from a negative 4.1% down to a negative 14.9%. I think he's a sell high or hold. Moving much further down, once again, Justin Jefferson, I think, is probably the best buy for the fantasy playoffs in and of themselves, because he's, first of all, an elite receiver, but then second of all, he has the easiest strength of schedule of any wide receiver, tied with Jordan Addison, obviously. Somebody like Jalen Waddle is going from 0.8% up to 15.3%. I think he is a serious buy. Somebody like Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, even, though he's going from a 2.9% down to a negative 10.9%, that's obviously a reason to potentially sell high. I know that, Jacoby Brissett has kind of unlocked this offense, which is ridiculous to have to say that he's a fine, veteran bridge quarterback, but for the offense to look this much better really says a lot, in my opinion, about Kyler Murray. But I think he is a very good sell high candidate, while he has this value due to being connected now to a quarterback that's capable of throwing to him. But then somebody like Christian Watson, I think, is a good buy low candidate. I think he has, these high-end weeks like this week where he put up 20 total points and happened to score 2 touchdowns. He's going to be a streaky player, but if you can get him in a plus matchup where they can attack the ball deep, I think that he could have some high upside games. Somebody like Jameson Williams, I think, is a serious buy now that Dan Campbell is calling plays. The buy low window might have shut already, but I think he's a great buy. And so with A.J. Brown, I know that, there's been a little bit of an issue between him and the team to a degree, but I still think that he is a very talented player. I like Hurts as a quarterback, and I think that they're going to get that chemistry going, and he's going to have advantageous matchups that are going to allow him to take advantage of that. And then finally, at the very end, once again, Ricky Pearsall, I think he is a serious buy. He's going from a negative 3% up to a 9.8%. And he does have 20 points in any individual game plus type of upside, even if he's not regarded as one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And so where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let me know who you are personally looking to buy in anticipation of the fantasy playoffs. I hope this video has helped you. If you would be so kind and would like to, you can always support the channel via the Patreon that I'm going to leave in the description. And I will personally try to help you make trades if you were to, because that is part of what you get when you become a Patreon member. If you do not wish to or cannot afford to, if you could just like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment below. It helps with the algorithm. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. I hope you have a good day. I hope you smash your playoff matchups and win your chips this year. Thank you.